Your problem is, Leah. You think throwing money at everything makes you important. But you're still just a worthless burden who can't even keep a man. I stared at my phone screen, my father's voice echoing from the video my uncle had accidentally sent me. The words hit harder than any slap. I was sitting in my small apartment in Portland, Oregon, surrounded by the evidence of my careful budgeting. Secondhand furniture, generic brand groceries, nothing extravagant. And yet, for the past 4 years, I had been paying my father's mortgage every single month without fail. My name is Leah, and I'm 32 years old. I work as a logistics coordinator for a mid-sized shipping company, making decent money, but nothing spectacular. I'd always been the responsible one in the family, the one who showed up when things got tough, the one who never asked for anything in return. My father had raised me and my older brother Kenneth on his own after my mother passed away when I was 7. He'd worked construction jobs his entire life, and when he retired 5 years ago, his savings were non-existent. The video had come through at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. My Uncle Jared, my father's younger brother, had meant to send it to someone else in the family. Instead, it landed in my messages with a simple text. Thought you'd want to see this from Sunday dinner. I pressed play again, needing to make sure I'd heard correctly. The camera was shaky, clearly filmed on someone's phone at a family gathering I hadn't been invited to. My father sat at the head of the table, a beer in his hand, looking relaxed and comfortable. My brother Kenneth was beside him, laughing at something. Aunt Patricia, Uncle Gerald and a few cousins filled the other chairs. Leah's been real generous with that mortgage money. Uncle Gerald's voice came from behind the camera. You raised a good daughter, Frank. My father snorted. Generous? She owes me. I put a roof over her head for 18 years. This is just her paying back what she took from me. Besides, she's got nothing else going on. No husband, no kids. Might as well make herself useful as our cash cow. The table erupted in laughter. My brother Kenneth added, She's always been like that, desperate to prove she matters. It's kind of sad, honestly. My Aunt Patricia chimed in. At least she's good for something, better than being completely useless. I stopped the video. My hands were shaking. The apartment felt too small suddenly, the walls pressing in on me. I'd been sending my father $2,000 every month for 4 years. That was $96,000. Nearly $100,000 to a man who saw me as nothing more than a convenient ATM. The worst part wasn't even the words. It was the casualness of it all. They were sitting around a dinner table, eating food probably paid for with my money, laughing about how pathetic I was. And I hadn't even known they were gathering. Nobody had invited me. Nobody had thought to include me in these family dinners where, apparently, I was the entertainment. I looked around my apartment. The couch I'd bought from a thrift store. The coffee table I'd assembled myself from discount furniture. The curtains I'd sewn from clearance fabric because I couldn't afford anything nicer. All because I'd been putting my father first, making sure his mortgage was paid, making sure he could keep the house he'd lived in for 30 years. My phone buzzed. Another message from Uncle Gerald. Sorry, that wasn't meant for you. Let's just forget about it. Forget about it. As if I could unhear my own father calling me worthless. As if I could unsee my entire family laughing at my expense. I sat there for a long time. The video paused on my father's smirking face. Part of me wanted to call him immediately, to scream and demand an explanation. But another part of me, the part that had learned to be careful and calculated from years of being overlooked, told me to wait. The next mortgage payment was due in 2 weeks. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed, replaying the video over and over, memorizing every word, every laugh, every contemptuous look. By the time the sun came up, I'd watched it 17 times. My relationship with my father had never been warm. After my mother died, he'd thrown himself into work, leaving Kenneth and me to fend for ourselves most of the time. Kenneth, being 3 years older, had taken on a protective role that quickly morphed into something else. He became the golden child, the son who could do no wrong, while I became the girl who was always in the way. I remembered being 10 years old, trying to show my father a picture I'd drawn at school. He barely glanced at it before handing it back. "That's nice, Leah. Go play outside. I'm trying to watch the game." Kenneth had laughed. "Nobody cares about your stupid drawings." That became the pattern. Kenneth would belittle me, and my father would either ignore it or join in. When I made honor roll in high school, my father said, "Good. At least you're not completely useless." When Kenneth barely graduated, my father threw him a party and bought him a car. I'd left for college on a partial scholarship, working 2 jobs to cover the rest. My father never offered to help. "You're smart," he'd said. "Figure it out." I did figure it out. I graduated with a degree in supply chain management and landed a job that paid reasonably well. I moved to Portland for work, putting distance between myself and the family that had never quite felt like mine. But I still called every week. I still sent birthday cards. I still showed up for Christmas, even though I often felt invisible. 4 years ago, my father called me. It was unusual. He never called unless he needed something. His voice was gruff, slightly embarrassed. "Leah, I need to talk to you about something." He explained that his retirement wasn't covering his expenses. The mortgage on his house was eating up most of his monthly income, and he was starting to fall behind. The bank had sent warnings. He might lose the house. "I can't ask Kenneth," he'd said. "He's got his own family to worry about. His wife Jessica just had the baby, and money's tight." I'd felt a flutter of something in my chest. Not quite hope, but close to it. He was asking me for help. He needed me. "How much is the mortgage?" I'd asked. $2,000 a month. It was a substantial chunk of my income, but I could manage it. I'd have to cut back on things, live more frugally, but I could do it. "I'll help," I'd said. "I'll send the money every month." There had been a pause. Then, "Really? You'd do that?" "You're my father. Of course I'd do that." "Well, thanks, Leah. I appreciate it." That was 4 years ago. Since then, I'd faithfully sent $2,000 on the first of every month. My father rarely thanked me. Sometimes he'd acknowledge the transfer with a brief text. "Got it." Other times, nothing at all. I'd convinced myself it didn't matter. I was helping. I was being a good daughter. Maybe this would finally make him see my worth. Now, sitting in my apartment with that video burned into my mind, I realized how foolish I'd been. He didn't see my worth. He saw a convenient source of money. A cash cow. A worthless burden who was at least good for something. I pulled up my banking app and looked at my transfer history. Every month, like clockwork. $2,000. $96,000 total. I thought about what I could have done with that money. I could have bought a car. I could have moved to a better apartment. I could have traveled, saved for a house of my own, invested in my future. Instead, I'd poured it all into a house I'd never inherit, for a man who mocked me behind my back. My phone rang. It was my father. I stared at the screen, watching his name flash. I didn't answer. He didn't leave a voicemail. 20 minutes later, Kenneth called. I didn't answer that either. Then a text from my father. "Gerald told me about the video. It was just family joking around. Don't be so sensitive. Don't be so sensitive." As if the problem was my reaction, not his words. I thought about responding. I thought about calling him and unleashing 4 years of hurt and anger. But something stopped me. A small voice in my head, cold and calculating, whispered, "Wait. Think. Plan." I opened my laptop and started digging through my financial records. Every transfer, every confirmation email, every text exchange about the mortgage. I saved everything to a folder on my desktop. Then I did something I'd never done before. I called the mortgage company. "Hello. I'm calling about the account for Frank Henderson," I said, using my father's name. I explained that I was his daughter and had been making payments on his behalf. I wanted to confirm the account status. The representative was helpful. The account was in good standing. All payments had been received. In fact, according to their records, the mortgage would be paid off completely in just 6 more months. 6 months. After 4 years of payments, my father was only 6 months away from owning his house outright. And then what? Would he even tell me? Would he just let me keep sending money, pocketing it for himself? I thanked the representative and hung up. My hands were steady now. The hurt was still there, buried deep. But on the surface I felt something else, something sharper, something that tasted like determination. The next payment was due in 12 days. The following days passed in a strange fog. I went to work, coordinated shipments, responded to emails, attended meetings. On the surface, everything was normal. Inside, I was building a plan. My father called twice more. I didn't answer. Kenneth sent several texts, each one more annoyed than the last. "Dad says you're ignoring him. What's your problem? And, you're really going to throw a fit over a stupid joke?" And finally, "You're being childish." I didn't respond to those either. On Thursday, my best friend Fiona called. We'd met in college and stayed close despite living in different cities. She was one of the few people who knew the full story of my family dynamics. "You okay?" she asked. "You've been quiet." I told her about the video. I played it for her over the phone. There was a long silence after it ended. "Leah," she finally said, her voice tight with anger. "That's horrible. Those people are horrible." "I know. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to stop paying the mortgage." "Good. You should have stopped years ago." "But I'm not just going to stop quietly. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what's been happening." Fiona was quiet for a moment. "How?" I explained my plan. The mortgage receipts. The video. The documentation of every payment I'd made. I was going to send it all to every member of my extended family. I wanted them to see the truth. Not the version my father told at Sunday dinners, but the actual facts. "He's going to be furious," Fiona warned. "Good." "Leah, I'm serious. He might try to retaliate. Your whole family might turn on you." "They already have," I said quietly. "They've been turning on me my whole life. I just didn't realize it until now." She sighed. "Okay. If you're sure about this, I'm behind you. What do you need from me?" "Just be there when the fallout happens. I'm going to need someone to talk to. Always." After we hung up, I spent the evening compiling everything. I pulled up every bank statement showing the transfers. I downloaded every confirmation email. I took screenshots of text conversations with my father about the payments. I organized it all chronologically, creating a clear timeline that showed exactly how much I'd given and how long I'd been doing it. Then I made copies of the video my uncle had sent, saving it to multiple drives to make sure I wouldn't lose it. I drafted an email. It took several attempts to get the tone right. I didn't want to sound hysterical or emotional. I wanted to sound calm, factual, and undeniable. The email read, "I'm writing to share some information about the mortgage payments I've been making on my father's behalf for the past 4 years. I thought it was important for everyone to understand the full situation. Attached, you'll find documentation of every payment I've made, totaling $96,000. I've also included a video that I believe provides helpful context. I won't be making any future payments." Simple. Direct. Devastating. I made a list of recipients. Uncle Gerald, Aunt Patricia, my cousins, my father's friends from church, the neighbors he'd known for decades. Anyone who might have heard his version of events. Anyone who might have sat at those Sunday dinners and laughed along. But I didn't send it yet. The mortgage payment wasn't due until Monday. I wanted to wait until the last possible moment. Until my father realized the money wasn't coming. Until he started to panic. Then, when he called demanding to know where his payment was, I'd hit send. The weekend was torture. I kept checking my phone, half expecting my father to somehow sense what I was planning. But there was nothing. Radio silence from the entire family. On Sunday evening, I went for a long walk through my neighborhood. Portland was beautiful in early autumn, the leaves just starting to turn, the air crisp and cool. I thought about my mother, the one person who'd made me feel loved and wanted. She'd been kind, patient, always ready with a hug or a word of encouragement. I wondered what she would think of what I was about to do. I decided she'd understand. She'd spent her life trying to make my father happy, trying to smooth over his rough edges, trying to make him into someone capable of showing affection. It had exhausted her. Maybe, in some way, she'd want me to stop making the same mistake. When I got home, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my laptop. The email was still there, waiting in my drafts folder. All those attachments, all that documentation, ready to go. My phone rang. My father. I answered this time. "About time," he said, his voice gruff. "You've been avoiding my calls all week." "I've been busy." "Too busy for your own father?" I almost laughed at the irony. "What do you need?" "Just checking in, making sure the payment's going through tomorrow. The mortgage is due." There it was. Not, "How are you?" or, "I'm sorry about the video." Just a confirmation that his cash cow was still functioning properly. "Actually," I said slowly, "I wanted to talk to you about that." "What about it?" "I'm not sending the payment this month." Silence. Then, "What?" "I'm not sending the payment. I'm done." "Done? What the hell does that mean?" "It means exactly what it sounds like. I've been paying your mortgage for 4 years, $96,000, and I'm not doing it anymore." His voice turned sharp. "Leah, this isn't funny. That payment needs to go through tomorrow. Then you'll have to make it yourself. You can't just stop. We had an agreement. We had an agreement where I sent you money and you called me a worthless burden behind my back." "That agreement?" Another silence. Longer this time. When he spoke again, his voice was different, defensive. "Gerald shouldn't have sent you that video. But he did. And now I know exactly what you think of me. It was just talk, family stuff. You're overreacting." "Family stuff? He called me your cash cow. He said I was worthless. You let everyone laugh about it." "Look, I didn't mean it like that. You're twisting things." I felt something cold settle in my chest. "I'm not twisting anything. I heard what you said. I saw how you said it. And now I'm making a choice. I'm done being your cash cow." "Leah, be reasonable. Where am I supposed to get $2,000 by tomorrow?" "I don't know, and I don't care. That's your problem now. You're being selfish." And there it was. The accusation I'd been waiting for. Selfish. Because wanting basic respect from my own father was selfish. Because stopping myself from being used was selfish. "Goodbye," I said, and hung up. My hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't from hurt. It was from adrenaline. From the knowledge that I'd just crossed a line I could never uncross. My phone immediately started ringing again. My father. Then Kenneth. Then my father again. I turned off the ringer and set the phone face down on the table. Then I opened my email, pulled up the draft I'd prepared, and hovered my cursor over the send button. Tomorrow morning I'd watch my father's world crumble the same way he'd crumbled mine. Tomorrow morning, everyone would know the truth. I thought about that video one more time. My father's smirking face. The laughter around the table. The casual cruelty of people who'd never once considered how their words might hurt me. I clicked send. The emails went out at 6 a.m. on Monday morning. I'd set them to send automatically, timed perfectly for when people would be checking their phones over coffee, when they'd have time to read through everything, when the information would have maximum impact. I didn't sleep Sunday night. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining the reactions. Uncle Gerald opening his email and seeing the video he'd accidentally sent me, now broadcast to the entire family. Aunt Patricia reading through the mortgage receipts, adding up the numbers. My father's church friends watching him call me worthless, hearing him laugh about using me. At 6:15 a.m., my phone started buzzing. I turned the ringer back on, and now I watched as notification after notification rolled in. Missed calls, text messages, voicemails, the digital equivalent of a bomb going off. I made myself breakfast, scrambled eggs and toast, and ate slowly while my phone continued its frantic dance across the counter. I wasn't ready to engage yet. I wanted them to sit with it, to really absorb what they'd seen and read. At 7 a.m., I finally picked up my phone. 43 missed calls, 67 text messages, 21 voicemails. I started with the texts. Uncle Gerald. Leah, I'm so sorry. I had no idea Frank felt that way. Please call me. Aunt Patricia. This is humiliating for everyone. Why would you air private family business like this? Kenneth. What the hell is wrong with you? You're destroying this family over a stupid joke. My father. Multiple messages, each one angrier than the last. How dare you? You vindictive little bitch. After everything I did for you, you're dead to me. But then there were other messages, ones I hadn't expected. My cousin Julie. I had no idea you were paying his mortgage. I'm so sorry, Leah. What he said about you was disgusting. My father's neighbor, Mrs. Henderson. I always thought you were such a sweet girl. Your father never mentioned any of this. I'm appalled by what I saw in that video. Someone from my father's church. Frank has been accepting donations from the congregation for years, claiming he was struggling financially. Were you paying his bills this whole time? That last message made me pause. Donations from the church? While I was sending him $2,000 a month? I opened the voicemails. My father's voice filled my apartment, raw with rage. You think you can humiliate me like this? You think you can turn everyone against me? You're nothing, Leah. You've always been nothing. Your mother would be ashamed of you. I deleted it and moved to the next one. Kenneth, equally furious. You've always been jealous of what Dad and I have. This is just you trying to ruin everything because you can't stand that you're alone and miserable. Grow up. But then Uncle Gerald's voice, quieter, almost broken. Leah, I owe you an apology. I should have said something that night. I should have stood up for you. What Frank said was wrong, and I was wrong to laugh. I'm sorry. I sat with that for a moment. An actual apology. It didn't fix anything, but it was something. I decided to check social media. That was a mistake. My father had posted on Facebook. When your own child betrays you and spreads lies to destroy your reputation, you realize you raised a monster. I gave Leah everything, and this is how she repays me. Praying for guidance. The comments were split. Half were supportive of him, people who didn't know the full story saying things like, family should stick together, and kids these days have no respect. But the other half had clearly received my email. Frank, I saw the video. Those weren't lies. You called your daughter a cash cow while she was paying your bills. How is that her being the monster? I can't believe you accepted money from the church while your daughter was supporting you. Kenneth had posted too. Some people will do anything for attention. Sad to see my sister destroy our family because she can't take a joke. I closed the app. My hands were steady, but my heart was racing. This was bigger than I'd anticipated. The ripple effect was spreading faster and wider than I'd imagined. My work phone rang. My boss, Patricia. I'd completely forgotten about work in the chaos of the morning. Leah, are you okay? You're usually here by now. I looked at the clock. 8:30 a.m. I was supposed to have been at the office an hour ago. I'm so sorry. I had a family emergency. Can I work from home today? Of course. Is everything all right? It will be. Thank you for understanding. I spent the rest of the morning fielding messages and watching the fallout unfold online. More relatives weighed in. My father's reputation in the community was crumbling in real time. People who'd known him for decades were questioning everything they thought they knew about him. Around noon, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Leah? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes. Who's this? My name is Catherine. I'm the treasurer at St. Michael's Church, where your father is a member. I'm calling about some financial discrepancies we've discovered. My stomach dropped. What kind of discrepancies? For the past 3 years, your father has been receiving monthly assistance from our church hardship fund. He claimed he was struggling to keep his house, that he had no family support, that he was at risk of becoming homeless. Based on the documentation he sent this morning, it appears those claims were false. 3 years. Monthly assistance. While I was sending him $2,000 every month. How much? I asked quietly. I'm not at liberty to discuss exact amounts, but it's significant. The church board is meeting this afternoon to discuss the matter. I thought you should know. After she hung up, I sat in stunned silence. It wasn't enough that he'd used me. He'd also scammed his church, taking money from people who genuinely wanted to help, people who probably had less than he did. My phone buzzed. A text from Fiona. Holy shit. I've been watching this unfold all morning. Are you okay? I called her instead of texting back. Define okay, I said when she answered. Fair point. This is bigger than we thought it would be. He was taking money from his church, Fiona, for 3 years, while I was paying his mortgage. You're kidding. I wish I was. The treasurer just called me. Fiona was quiet for a moment. He's worse than we thought. Yeah. How are you feeling? I considered the question. Honestly, I'm not sure. Part of me feels vindicated, like finally people are seeing the truth, but part of me feels guilty. Maybe. Like I'm wondering if I went too far. Leah, no. Listen to me. You didn't go too far. You told the truth. That's all you did. Everything that's happening now? That's the consequence of his actions, not yours. She was right. But it didn't make it easier to watch. By evening, the situation had escalated further. My father's Facebook post had been shared dozens of times, but so had screenshots of the receipts I'd sent. People were arguing in the comments, some defending him, others calling him out. The church had apparently made an announcement during their evening service about the misappropriation of funds, though they hadn't named my father directly. But everyone knew. Kenneth called me 17 times. I didn't answer any of them. At 9 p.m. there was a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw Kenneth standing there, his face red with anger. I didn't open the door. Leah, I know you're in there, he shouted. Open the door. We need to talk. Go away, Kenneth. You can't hide forever. You've ruined everything. Dad might lose the house because of you. He might lose the house because he can't pay his own mortgage. I called back. That's not my problem. You selfish bitch. After everything Dad did for us. What did he do, Kenneth? Tell me. What exactly did he do besides provide the bare minimum while making me feel worthless? There was silence. Then, you don't understand. You never understood. Dad was doing his best after Mom died. His best included calling me a burden. His best included using me for money while laughing about it with the family. It was just talk. Then why are you so upset that everyone heard it? More silence. Then the sound of him kicking my door. This isn't over, Leah. I waited until I heard his footsteps retreat down the hallway before I let myself breathe. My hands were shaking again. I'd never heard Kenneth so angry, never heard him so unhinged. I called building security and reported the incident. They assured me they'd keep an eye out, that Kenneth would be asked to leave if he returned. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept replaying the day, the messages, the voicemails. Kenneth at my door. I'd wanted to expose the truth, and I had. But the truth had teeth, and now everyone was bleeding. The next morning brought a new development I hadn't anticipated. My phone rang at 7 a.m. with another unknown number. This time it was a lawyer. Miss Henderson? My name is Robert Barnes. I represent your father, Frank Henderson. He's asked me to contact you regarding the defamatory materials you distributed yesterday. I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. Defamatory materials? The video and financial documents you sent to numerous individuals. Your father believes this constitutes harassment and defamation of character. He's prepared to pursue legal action unless you issue a public retraction and apology. I almost laughed. Everything I sent was true. I have documentation for every payment. The video came from my uncle. My father's own words. Regardless of the source, you had no right to distribute private family matters to such a wide audience. You've caused significant damage to your father's reputation and emotional well-being. His reputation? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. What about my emotional well-being? What about the damage he caused by using me for years while mocking me behind my back? The lawyer's tone remained professional, detached. I understand you're upset, but that doesn't give you the right to engage in what amounts to a harassment campaign. Your father is willing to be reasonable. Issue an apology, and we can all move forward. Tell my father that if he wants to sue me, he should go ahead. Every word I sent was true, and I have evidence to prove it. I'm not apologizing for telling the truth. Miss Henderson? We're done here. I hung up. My heart was pounding. A lawsuit. He was actually threatening to sue me because I'd exposed his behavior. The audacity of it was almost impressive. I immediately called Fiona. He got a lawyer, I said as soon as she answered. What? Already? I explained the conversation. Fiona was quiet for a moment, then said, Okay, don't panic. He's bluffing. He has to be. If this goes to court, everything becomes public record. The church fraud, the mortgage payments, all of it. He's trying to scare you into backing down. It's working. Leah, listen to me. You need your own lawyer. Just to be safe. Do you want me to ask around? Yeah, thanks. After we hung up, I got ready for work, moving mechanically through my morning routine. I'd taken yesterday off, but I couldn't hide forever. I had responsibilities, projects that needed attention. I couldn't let my father's mess consume my entire life. The office was awkward. Everyone had clearly heard something. Portland wasn't that big, and office gossip traveled fast. My coworker Jennifer approached me at lunch with a sympathetic expression. Hey, I just wanted to say, if you need anything, I'm here. I saw some of what's been going on online. Thanks, I said, not sure what else to say. For what it's worth, I think you were brave. My dad was similar. Always taking, never giving. I wish I'd had the courage to stand up to him. Her words surprised me. I'd always thought of Jennifer as someone with a perfect family, someone who wouldn't understand. Thank you. That means a lot. The rest of the day passed in a blur of work and anxious checking of my phone. More messages had come in. Some supportive, some angry. My Aunt Patricia had sent a long email accusing me of destroying the family, of being vindictive and cruel. Your father made a mistake, she wrote. But you've blown this completely out of proportion. Family forgives family. That's what love means. I deleted it without responding. At 4 p.m., I got another call from the church treasurer, Catherine. Leah, I wanted to update you on our situation. The board met last night, and we've decided to pursue repayment from your father for the funds he received under false pretenses. We're also filing a formal complaint with our denominational headquarters. I see. I want you to know that this isn't your fault. He simply brought the truth to light. What your father did, lying to receive aid he didn't need, that's on him. Thank you for saying that. There's something else. Several church members have expressed interest in starting a fund to repay you for the mortgage payments you made. They feel terrible that you were supporting your father while he was also taking from the church. I was stunned. That's very kind. But I don't expect. It's not about expectation. It's about making things right. We'll be in touch. After she hung up, I sat at my desk, overwhelmed. People I'd never met were trying to help me. Strangers were seeing my worth more clearly than my own family ever had. That evening, I met with the lawyer Fiona had recommended. Her name was Grace, and she was in her 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. I've reviewed the materials you sent me, she said, spreading documents across her desk. Your father doesn't have a case. Everything you distributed was factual and documented. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation claims, so I don't have to worry about being sued. Oh, he might try, but he won't win. In fact, if he does file suit, we can countersue for frivolous litigation. More importantly, we can subpoena records from his church to document the fraud he committed there. Would that help my case? It would help establish a pattern of financial manipulation and dishonesty. It would also likely result in criminal charges against him for charity fraud. I absorbed this. Criminal charges. My father could actually face legal consequences beyond just embarrassment. What do you want to do? Grace asked. I want to be prepared. I don't want to sue him. I just want him to leave me alone. But if he comes after me, I want to be ready. Fair enough. I'll prepare a response to his lawyer, making it clear that we're prepared to defend vigorously and countersue if necessary. That should make him think twice. As I left her office, I felt a strange sense of clarity. I'd been reacting, responding to attacks, defending myself. But now I was taking control. I was setting boundaries and making it clear that I wouldn't be pushed around anymore. My phone rang. Uncle Gerald. I answered. Hello. Leah, it's me. Do you have a minute? I guess. I need to tell you something. I've been thinking about that night, about the dinner and the video. I keep replaying it in my head and I'm ashamed. Not just of Frank, but of myself. I should have said something. I should have stood up for you. Why didn't you? He sighed heavily. Honestly, because it's easier to go along with Frank than to challenge him. He's always been the dominant one in the family, and disagreeing with him means becoming a target. But that's a coward's excuse. He deserved better. Yes, I did. I called because I want you to know that I've talked to Patricia and some of the others. Not everyone agrees with what Frank did. Some of us are starting to realize how badly you've been treated over the years. Starting to realize? It took a video and $96,000 in receipts for you to realize? You're right. I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I want you to know that I'm here if you need support. And I'm prepared to testify on your behalf if this goes to court. I softened slightly. Thank you. That means something. After we hung up, I realized how exhausted I was. It had been less than 48 hours since I'd sent those emails, and my entire world had been turned inside out. But beneath the exhaustion was something else. A growing sense of power. I'd been afraid of my father's anger my whole life. Afraid of disappointing him. Afraid of losing whatever scraps of approval he might throw my way. But now, with nothing left to lose, I felt free. That night, I did something I hadn't done in years. I looked through old photo albums. Pictures from my childhood before my mother died. There I was at 6 years old, grinning with missing front teeth. There was my mother, her arms around me, her smile warm and real. There was a picture of my father, younger and less bitter, holding me on his shoulders at a park. When had it changed? When had he stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a burden? Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe the why wasn't as important as the what. What he'd done, what he'd said, what I was doing now. I closed the album and went to bed, finally feeling like I might actually sleep. Wednesday morning brought the news I'd been both expecting and dreading. Kenneth showed up at my workplace. I was in the middle of a logistics meeting when Jennifer knocked on the conference room door. "Leah, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you. He says he's your brother." My stomach dropped. "Tell him I'm busy." I tried. He's refusing to leave. He's getting kind of loud in the lobby. I excused myself from the meeting and went to the front office. Kenneth was there, his face flushed, his posture aggressive. 2 security guards were standing nearby, clearly ready to intervene if necessary. "Kenneth, you need to leave," I said, keeping my voice level and professional. "Not until we talk. You've done enough damage. It's time to fix this." "There's nothing to fix. I told the truth. That's all." "The truth?" His voice rose. "You humiliated our father. You destroyed his reputation. The church kicked him out, Leah. Do you understand that? They asked him to stop attending services. He's been going to that church for 20 years. That's a consequence of his actions, not mine. He's talking about suicide. Are you happy now? Is this what you wanted?" The words hit me like a physical blow. Suicide. I felt the color drain from my face. One of the security guards stepped forward. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice or leave the premises." Kenneth ignored him, focused entirely on me. "He called me last night, crying. Said he had nothing left to live for." "That's on you, Leah. If something happens to him, it's your fault." I found my voice, though it shook. "Kenneth, if Dad is genuinely suicidal, he needs professional help. That's not something I can fix. And it's not something you should be using as a weapon against me. Everything was fine until you decided to play victim." Everything was not fine. I was paying for a house I'd never inherit while he called me worthless behind my back. That's not fine. The security guard moved closer. "Sir, final warning. Leave now or we'll call the police." Kenneth pointed at me, his hands shaking. "You're going to regret this. When this family falls apart, when Dad loses everything, remember that you did this. You're the one who destroyed everything." He turned and stormed out. I stood there trembling, trying to process what had just happened. My co-workers had witnessed the entire scene. My boss appeared from her office, concern written across her face. "Leah, are you all right? Do you want to go home for the day?" "No," I said, surprised by the firmness in my own voice. "No, I'm fine. I'd like to get back to work." But I wasn't fine. Kenneth's words about suicide echoed in my head for the rest of the day. Was my father really at risk of hurting himself? Or was this another manipulation? Another attempt to make me feel guilty and back down? I called Grace, my lawyer, during lunch. "He's escalating," I told her after explaining what had happened. "My brother showed up at my work, made a scene, told me my father is suicidal. That's concerning. Have you considered getting a restraining order against your brother? Would that help? It would establish a legal boundary. If he violates it, there are consequences. It might also demonstrate to your father and his lawyer that you're serious about protecting yourself." "Okay, let's do it. I'll start the paperwork. In the meantime, document everything. Keep records of every contact, every threat, every attempt at manipulation." After work, I drove home feeling drained. My apartment had always been my sanctuary. but now it felt vulnerable. Kenneth knew where I lived. My father knew where I lived. Anyone in my family could show up at any time. I was considering looking for a new place when my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer. Leah? A woman's voice, older, vaguely familiar. Yes? This is Margaret. Margaret Simmons. I was your mother's best friend. I remembered her vaguely. She'd been around when I was very young, had visited often before my mother died. Hi, Margaret. I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from your Uncle Jared. I've been following what's been happening, and I needed to reach out to you. Oh. Your mother would be so proud of you. The words surprised me. What? She'd be proud that you stood up for yourself, that you refused to be treated the way Frank treated her. I sat down heavily on my couch. What do you mean? Margaret sighed. Your mother was a wonderful woman, but Frank made her life difficult. He was controlling, dismissive, always making her feel small. She stayed because of you kids, because she believed families should stick together no matter what. But it broke her. The stress of living with someone who constantly belittled her, it wore her down. I didn't know. You were young. She tried to protect you from it. But Leah, I want you to know something. A few weeks before she died, she told me that if anything ever happened to her, I should watch out for you. She was worried Frank would treat you the way he treated her. She said you were so much like her, kind, giving, always trying to please people who'd never be pleased. Tears were streaming down my face now. She said that. She did. And she made me promise that if you ever needed help, I'd be there. I'm sorry I haven't been. I should have stayed in touch, should have checked on you. But I'm here now. And I want you to know that what you did, exposing the truth, that took courage. Your mother never had that courage. And it cost her. But you do. We talked for another hour. Margaret told me stories about my mother I'd never heard, filled in gaps in my memory, helped me understand the woman I'd lost so young. By the time we hung up, I felt both sadder and stronger. Sad for my mother, for what she'd endured. Strong in the knowledge that I was breaking a cycle, refusing to be another woman ground down by my father's cruelty. That night, I received an email from the church. They'd completed their investigation and determined that my father had fraudulently obtained approximately $48,000 over 3 years. They were demanding full repayment and had referred the matter to local authorities for potential criminal prosecution. $48,000. Added to the $96,000 I'd paid, that meant my father had received almost $150,000 while claiming to be destitute. I forwarded the email to Grace, to Uncle Jared, to everyone who'd received my original message. If Kenneth wanted to accuse me of destroying the family, fine. But everyone should know exactly what they were defending. The responses came quickly. More support from relatives I barely knew. More condemnation from those loyal to my father. The family was fracturing along fault lines I hadn't known existed. But one message stood out. It was from my cousin Julia, Patricia's daughter. Leah, can we meet? There's something I need to tell you about your dad. Something that happened years ago that you should know. I stared at the message. Something that happened years ago? What could possibly be left to uncover? I typed back, when and where? Her response was immediate. Tomorrow, coffee shop on 3rd Street, 10 a.m. I agreed, then sat back and wondered what fresh hell I was about to discover. My father's behavior had been bad enough. What else could there be? As I got ready for bed, my phone buzzed one more time. A text from an unknown number. You've made a big mistake. This isn't over. I stared at the message, feeling a chill run down my spine. Was it from my father? Kenneth? Someone else? I forwarded it to Grace and to the police. adding it to the growing file of harassment. Then I turned off my phone and lay in the darkness, listening to every sound, wondering when the next blow would come, and from what direction. Sleep didn't come easy, but when it finally did, I dreamed of my mother. She was standing in a field of flowers, smiling, her arms open. "Come on," she was saying. "You're almost through. Just a little further." I woke up crying, but for the first time in days, they weren't entirely tears of grief. There was relief there too. Relief that I'd finally found the courage to stop being my father's victim. Whatever came next, I'd face it standing up. I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, too anxious to wait at home. I ordered a latte I didn't really want, and sat at a corner table where I could see the door. My mind raced with possibilities about what Julia might tell me. She was Patricia's daughter, 28 years old, and we'd never been particularly close. Our interactions had been limited to awkward family gatherings where she'd mostly ignored me. She walked in at exactly 10 a.m., looking nervous. Her eyes swept the room until they found me, and she headed over, clutching her purse like a shield. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, sitting down across from me. "What's this about, Julia?" She took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something that happened when I was 16, something involving your dad." My chest tightened. "Okay." "That summer I stayed with your family for 2 weeks while my parents went on a cruise. You were away at some summer program, so it was just me, your dad, and Kenneth." She paused, her hands twisting together. "Your dad?" He made me uncomfortable. He'd make comments about how I was developing, how I looked in my swimsuit. One night, he came into the guest room while I was sleeping, and sat on the edge of the bed. He put his hand on my leg and started moving it up. I felt sick. "Julia!" I screamed. Kenneth heard, and came running, and your dad left. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened. When I told my mom, she talked to your dad, and he denied everything. Said I'd had a nightmare, that I was confused. My mom believed him. Or she pretended to. Either way, she told me never to mention it again, that it would tear the family apart. "I'm so sorry, I had no idea." "How could you? You weren't there." "But Leah, when I saw that video, when I saw him calling you worthless, treating you like garbage, I realized I'd been protecting him by staying quiet. And I can't do it anymore. If this goes to court, if his lawyer tries to paint him as some victim, I'm prepared to testify about what he did to me." I reached across the table and took her hand. "Thank you for telling me. That took courage." My mom's furious. She says I'm betraying the family, making up stories to hurt your dad, but I'm not making anything up. And I'm tired of pretending. After Julia left, I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, processing what she'd told me. My father wasn't just financially manipulative and emotionally abusive. He was predatory. The man who'd raised me, who I'd spent years trying to please, had done that to a 16-year-old girl. I called Grace immediately. "We need to meet. There's been a development." That afternoon, I sat in Grace's office and told her everything Julia had shared. Grace's expression grew darker as I spoke. "This changes things," she said when I finished. "If your father pursues legal action against you, and Julia testifies about his behavior, it completely destroys his credibility. More than that, depending on the statute of limitations, he could face criminal charges for what he did to her." "Julia's willing to testify," she told me. "Good. I'll reach out to her and get a formal statement. In the meantime, I'm going to send a letter to your father's attorney outlining what we know. Sometimes the threat of exposure is enough to make people back down." I left Grace's office feeling both vindicated and deeply disturbed. Every layer I peeled back revealed something worse underneath. My father wasn't just a bad parent. He was dangerous. That evening I got a call from Uncle Gerald. "Leah, we need to talk about Frank." What about him? He's in bad shape. He's been drinking heavily, not leaving the house. I went to check on him today, and the place is a disaster. He's talking about the house being foreclosed, about having nothing left. He's the one who chose not to pay his mortgage, Gerald. That's not my responsibility. I know. I'm not asking you to help him financially. But Leah, he's my brother. Despite everything, I'm worried about him. So what do you want from me? I want you to know that some of us understand why you did what you did. Patricia doesn't. Kenneth doesn't. But I do. And I want you to know that whatever happens next, you have support in this family. His words meant more than I expected. Thank you. There's something else. I talked to the mortgage company. Frank's got about 3 weeks before they start foreclosure proceedings. The church is demanding their money back. His lawyer dropped him after finding out about the church fraud. Apparently representing someone in a criminal case isn't what he signed up for. Frank's basically alone. And it's his own doing. 3 weeks, I repeated. Yeah, I don't know what he's going to do. I offered to help him figure something out, but he just yelled at me and kicked me out. After we hung up, I sat with that information. 3 weeks until my father lost the house he'd lived in for 30 years. The house my mother had loved, where she'd planted flowers in the garden and hung pictures on the walls. The house I'd been paying for while my father mocked me. Part of me felt guilty, but a larger part felt nothing at all. He'd made his choices. Now he'd live with them. The next morning, I received a certified letter. It was from my father, handwritten, the penmanship shaky. Leah, I'm writing to ask for your forgiveness. I know I've hurt you. I know what I said was wrong. I'm begging you to show mercy. Help me save the house, and I promise things will be different. I'll make it up to you. Please. I'm your father. I read it twice, looking for genuine remorse, for any acknowledgement of the years of pain he'd caused. But all I saw was desperation and manipulation. He wasn't sorry for what he'd done. He was sorry he'd gotten caught. I wrote back, keeping it simple. I forgive you for my own peace of mind, not because you deserve it. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. And it doesn't mean I'll rescue you from the consequences of your actions. You called me worthless. You used me. You committed fraud. Those are your choices. And these are your consequences. Goodbye. I mailed it that afternoon, and felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I'd spent so long seeking his approval, his love, his respect. Now I was done seeking anything from him. The weekend came, and I finally had time to breathe. Fiona drove up from Eugene to spend Saturday with me. We went hiking in Forest Park, the trails still damp from recent rain, the air crisp and clean. How are you really doing? She asked as we walked. Honestly, I feel free. Exhausted, but free. No regrets? About exposing him? No. About all the years I wasted trying to earn his love? Maybe. You can't regret being a good person, Leah. That's who you are. It's not your fault your dad couldn't appreciate it. We hiked in comfortable silence for a while, and I realized she was right. I'd done nothing wrong by being kind, by trying to help. The fault lay entirely with the people who'd taken advantage of that kindness. Monday morning brought the confrontation I'd been anticipating. I was at work when Grace called. Your father's attorney contacted me. Well, his new attorney. Apparently he found someone willing to take his case. What do they want? They're threatening to file suit for intentional infliction of emotional distress and defamation. They're also claiming you orchestrated a campaign to destroy his reputation and livelihood. When's the court date? There isn't one yet. This is all posturing. They want you to settle, to retract everything and pay damages. How much? They're asking for $50,000 in a public apology. I almost laughed. $50,000? After he took $96,000 from me and $48,000 from the church? I know, it's absurd. I've prepared our response. We're not settling. If they want to take this to court, we'll countersue for the mortgage payments you made, plus interest and emotional damages. We'll also subpoena Julia and anyone else who's willing to testify about his behavior. By the time we're done, he'll wish he'd never filed. Do it. You're sure? This could get messy. I'm sure. I'm done being afraid of him. Grace sent the response that afternoon. The next day I got a voicemail from my father. His voice was slurred, clearly drunk. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you've won? You haven't. You're going to regret this, Leah. You're going to see what happens when you turn your back on family. Everything you've done, it's going to come back on you. You hear me? Everything. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Grace and to the police. It went into the file with everything else. The threatening text. Kenneth's workplace outburst. The harassment that had been building since I'd sent those emails. That week, the local news picked up the story. Someone had tipped them off about the church fraud case, and they ran a piece about it. They didn't name my father directly, but they mentioned a longtime church member who'd defrauded the hardship fund while receiving financial support from his daughter. It didn't take much for people to connect the dots. My father's Facebook page exploded. People who'd defended him before were now turning against him. Former friends commented with their own stories of times he'd borrowed money and never paid it back. Times he'd made inappropriate comments. Times he'd shown his true character. The picture that emerged was of a man who'd been manipulating people for decades. Kenneth tried to control the narrative, posting his own version of events. My sister is vindictive and cruel. She's twisting facts to destroy her father because she's bitter about her own failures. Don't believe her lies. But it was too late. The truth was out, documented and undeniable. Kenneth's posts made him look desperate and foolish. On Thursday, I received an email from the mortgage company. They'd started foreclosure proceedings on my father's house. The first auction date was set for 6 weeks out. If he couldn't come up with the full amount owed plus fees, the house would be sold. I felt a pang of something. Not quite regret, but a kind of sadness for what could have been. That house had been my mother's. She'd loved it. And now it would be gone. Another casualty of my father's choices. That evening, Aunt Patricia called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. Leah. Her voice was cold. I need to talk to you about what you've done to this family. What I've done? I told the truth. You've destroyed your father's life. He's losing his house because of you. He's losing his house because he can't pay his mortgage. I'm not responsible for that. You were paying it, and you stopped. Yes, after I found out he was calling me worthless while using my money. After I found out he was also stealing from his church. After I learned what he did to Julia. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Julia is lying about that. Is she? Or are you just refusing to believe your brother could do something so horrible? Frank would never. He did, Patricia. And you knew. You knew back then, and you chose to protect him instead of your own daughter. How do you live with that? You have no right to judge me. I'm not judging you, I'm just stating facts. You chose your brother over your daughter. That's on you. She hung up without another word. I sat there, phone in hand, and realized I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, just emptiness where my family used to be. The next day, Julia called me. Did my mom contact you? She did. She's still defending him. I know. She told me that if I testify against him, I'm not welcome in her home anymore. My own mother is choosing him over me. I'm sorry, Julia. Don't be. It's clarifying, actually. I know where I stand now. And Leah? I'm going to testify. Even if it means losing my mom. This ends now. Her courage gave me strength. We weren't just fighting for ourselves anymore. We were fighting for everyone my father had hurt. Everyone he'd manipulated. Everyone he'd convinced was worthless, while he took everything they had to give. Saturday afternoon, I was grocery shopping when I literally ran into my father. He was in the liquor aisle, a shopping cart full of beer and cheap whiskey. He looked terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed, his clothes wrinkled and stained. "Leah." His voice was rough. I nodded acknowledgement but kept walking. He followed me. "We need to talk." "No, we don't. Please, just 5 minutes." Against my better judgment, I stopped. "What?" "I need your help. I know I messed up. I know I said things I shouldn't have. But I'm your father. You can't just let me lose everything. You did this to yourself. The church is demanding money I don't have. The bank is foreclosing. Kenneth won't help me. He says I embarrassed him. I've got nobody else. You had me. For 4 years you had me, and you threw it away. I made a mistake." "No, Dad. A mistake is accidentally hurting someone. What you did was deliberate. You used me. You mocked me. You stole from people who trusted you. Those aren't mistakes. Those are choices." His face reddened with anger. "After everything I did for you, what did you do? You provided food and shelter, the bare minimum required by law. You never loved me. You never respected me. You made me feel worthless my entire life, and then you had the audacity to profit from my kindness. You're just like your mother. Weak. Always playing the victim." The words should have hurt, but they didn't. "No, I'm not like Mom. She stayed and let you break her. I'm leaving." I walked away. He called after me, his voice rising, causing other shoppers to stare. "This is your fault. Everything that happens is on you. You hear me, Leah? This is all your fault." I kept walking, out of the store, into the parking lot, into my car. My hands shook as I started the engine. But not from fear. From relief. I'd stood up to him. I'd said what I needed to say. And I'd walked away. That night, I received a Facebook message from someone I didn't know. "I went to school with your dad. He was a bully then too. I'm glad someone finally stood up to him. You're brave." More messages came. People sharing their own stories of my father's cruelty, his manipulation, his entitled behavior. A picture emerged of a man who'd been this way his entire life, who'd hurt person after person and never faced consequences. Until now. The court date was set for 3 weeks out. In the meantime, my father's situation continued to deteriorate. The foreclosure moved forward. The church filed a formal complaint with local authorities, and a detective contacted me to ask about the mortgage payments I'd made. "We're building a case for charity fraud," he explained. "Your father knowingly misrepresented his financial situation to receive funds he wasn't entitled to. That's a felony." "What happens if he's convicted?" "Depending on the amount and his criminal history, he could face jail time. More likely, he'll get probation and be required to pay restitution." Jail time. My father could actually go to jail. Part of me thought he deserved it. Another part felt uncomfortable with the idea, even after everything he'd done. Fiona asked me the same question Grace had. "Any regrets?" "No," I said, and I meant it. He made his choices. I just made sure everyone knew about them. The week before the court date, I received a letter from Kenneth. It was long, rambling, full of accusations and pleas. He claimed I'd destroyed the family, that I was vindictive and cruel, that I should be ashamed. But at the end, there was a line that caught my attention. "Dad's not going to make it through this. I hope you can live with that." I called him. Something I hadn't done since this all started. "What did you mean by that?" I asked when he answered. "About Dad not making it through this?" Exactly what I said. He's drinking himself to death. He's talking about ending it. This is what you wanted, isn't it? "Kenneth, if Dad is genuinely suicidal, he needs professional help. But I'm not responsible for his choices. You pushed him to this." "No. I pushed back against abuse. There's a difference. And you know what? You were part of it. You sat at that table and laughed when Dad called me worthless. You spent our entire lives putting me down to make yourself feel better. So don't call me and act like you're worried about Dad when really you're just angry that your free ride is ending. Free ride? What are you talking about? Did you think I didn't know? Dad told me years ago that he helped you with your down payment, that he's been supplementing your income. Where do you think that money came from, Kenneth? While I was paying his mortgage, he was giving you my money. Silence. You didn't know, I said, understanding. He never told you. That's not. I didn't ask him to. It doesn't matter. The point is, you benefited from my generosity while mocking me for it. You're just as guilty as he is. I hung up before he could respond. The court date arrived. I dressed carefully, professionally. Grace met me outside the courthouse, along with Julia, who'd agreed to be there in case her testimony was needed. Your father's attorney called this morning, Grace said. They want to settle. What are the terms? They dropped the suit entirely. You don't pursue repayment of the mortgage funds. Everyone walks away. And the church fraud charges? Those are criminal. They move forward regardless. I thought about it. I could end this here, walk away, start rebuilding my life. Or I could push forward, make sure every detail was documented in court records, make sure my father faced full accountability. What do you recommend? I asked Grace. Honestly? Take the settlement. You've already won. He's losing his house, facing criminal charges, and his reputation is destroyed. Pursuing this further just costs you time and money. I looked at Julia. What do you think? I think you should do what's right for you, she said. But Leah, you've already exposed him. You've already made sure people know the truth. Maybe it's time to let the legal system handle the rest. I nodded slowly. Okay. Tell them we accept. The hearing was brief. Both sides acknowledged the settlement. The judge dismissed the case. My father sat at the defense table, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. He didn't look at me once. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. The story had gotten enough local attention that they wanted comments. Grace had prepared me for this. Miss Henderson, how do you feel about the outcome today? A reporter asked, shoving a microphone in my face. I'm relieved it's over. I never wanted to sue my father or drag this through court. I just wanted to tell the truth about what happened. That's all I've ever wanted. Your father is facing criminal charges for charity fraud. Do you think the church's case is justified? I think the church has every right to pursue repayment for funds obtained fraudulently. I also think anyone who claims to need help should actually need help. What message do you have for others in similar situations? I paused, thinking. I'd say that family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, love, and support. And if you're not receiving those things, it's okay to walk away. You don't owe people your loyalty just because you're related. You deserve better than being used. The interview was over in 5 minutes, but the clip aired that evening on local news. My phone exploded with messages. Some supportive, some angry. But I'd stopped caring about the angry ones. I'd told my truth. People could accept it or not. 2 weeks later, the house sold at auction. Uncle Gerald called to tell me. It went for more than the mortgage balance. Frank will get about $30,000 after fees and payoffs. That's something. He's moving to a trailer park on the outskirts of town. 1 bedroom, pretty run down. It's all he can afford. I felt that pain of sadness again, but I pushed it aside. How's he doing? Still drinking, still angry, still blaming you for everything. I don't think that's going to change. Probably not. The church case moved forward. My father eventually pled guilty to a reduced charge and was sentenced to 2 years probation and full restitution of the $48,000. He'd be paying that back for years, probably the rest of his life. Kenneth stopped contacting me entirely. Patricia sent one final email. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family. I deleted it without responding. But other relationships strengthened. Julia and I became close, bonding over our shared experiences. Uncle Gerald checked in regularly, clearly trying to make up for years of silence. Even some of my father's former friends reached out to apologize for believing his version of events. 3 months after everything exploded, I was offered a promotion at work. Better pay, more responsibilities, a corner office with a view. I accepted immediately. Fiona drove up to celebrate with me. We went to a nice restaurant, ordered wine, allowed ourselves to enjoy the moment. To new beginnings, she toasted. To new beginnings. As we ate, I reflected on everything that had happened. The pain, the betrayal, the exposure, the fallout. It had been brutal. But I'd survived. More than survived. I'd emerged stronger, clearer about who I was, and what I deserved. 6 months later, I ran into my father one last time. I was at the grocery store again. And there he was, looking older and more warm. He saw me but didn't approach. Instead, he turned and walked away quickly. His shoulders hunched, his gaze down. I watched him go, and felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no sadness. Just nothing. He'd become a stranger to me. Someone I used to know. That evening, I pulled out the box of photos I'd looked through months before. The pictures of my mother, of the family we used to be. I spent a long time looking at them, saying goodbye to the past I'd carried for so long. Then I put the box away and pulled out my laptop. I'd been thinking about starting a blog, sharing my story, maybe helping others who were dealing with toxic family dynamics. I opened a blank document and started typing. My name is Leah, and I'm here to tell you that it's okay to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family. My father never recovered from the scandal. His reputation in the community was permanently destroyed. The people he'd once called friends stopped speaking to him. His church, where he'd attended for 20 years, banned him from services. He spent his probation working minimum wage jobs to pay back the restitution, living in a deteriorating trailer, drinking away what little money he had left. Kenneth, furious about losing his financial support from our father, eventually cut contact with him too. The golden son had finally seen the truth about the man he'd defended. My father died alone 3 years later. Liver failure, the result of years of heavy drinking. I didn't attend the funeral. I'd already said my goodbye. As for me, I built a life that was wholly my own. I moved to a better apartment with mountain views. I traveled to places I'd only dreamed about. I invested in myself, therapy, hobbies, friendships that were reciprocal and healthy. I started that blog, and it grew beyond anything I'd imagined, connecting me with thousands of people who'd experienced similar family trauma. Looking back on my revenge journey, I don't feel guilt or regret. I feel freedom. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop letting people diminish you. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is walk away from those who will never see your worth. I told the truth, and the truth set me free.